Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've spent over 3 decades in the mortgage industry, working my way up from a junior loan officer to managing entire portfolios. Throughout my career, I've dealt with countless banks and lenders, but X Bank has always stood out as problematic. Their servicing division especially has a reputation for nickel and diming customers while providing subpar service. So when I recently refinanced my mortgage and discovered the servicing rights had been sold to X Bank, I was less than thrilled. Based on industry standards, I knew they had likely paid around $5,000 to acquire the servicing rights to my loan. They were probably counting on at least 3 years of servicing fees to make their investment worthwhile. For those unfamiliar with mortgage servicing, these companies make their money by collecting a percentage of your loan balance each year, typically 0.25% for fixed-rate mortgages and 0.375% for adjustable rate mortgages. This comes directly from the interest portion of your monthly payments. About 2 months after X Bank took over my loan servicing, they made an announcement that really got under my skin. They would now be charging a $5 convenience fee for making mortgage payments online. As someone who understands the industry inside and out, I knew this was nothing but a pure money grab. I decided to fight back in my own way. Since I was fortunate enough to have some disposable income, I already made it a habit to pay a little extra on my mortgage each month to reduce the principal. Now I had an even better reason to do so. Every dollar I paid toward the principal meant less servicing fees for X Bank. For my next payment, I went to my local bank and withdrew my entire mortgage payment plus an extra $400, all in quarters. Then I walked into the nearest X Bank branch with my heavy bags of coins and payment stub. The branch manager helpfully pointed out that I could just write a check instead. I responded by telling them that I could do that, but I'd have to charge them a $9.50 convenience fee to cover the cost of the stamp, check, and ink. The branch manager actually laughed at that, which I appreciated. They counted out all the quarters and gave me my receipt without any further fuss. The following month, the online convenience fee was still in place, so I decided to visit a different X Bank branch, one notorious for its difficult manager based on Yelp reviews. I brought my quarters again, but this time the reception wasn't so friendly. The hostile manager flatly refused to accept quarters and demanded I write a check instead. I responded by asking if they'd like me to contact the State Banking Commissioner, Consumer Financial Protection Board, and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency to report their refusal to accept legal tender. The manager said that wouldn't be necessary but insisted on speaking with their district manager first. I agreed to wait. After making me stand there for 20 minutes, they finally counted out my quarters. When I was leaving, I couldn't resist telling them that next month I'd be bringing dimes. True to my word, I returned the following month with my payment in dimes. The hostile manager's face turned red, but they accepted the payment while glaring daggers at me the entire time. To my satisfaction, X Bank announced they were rescinding their online convenience fee shortly after that. But I wasn't done yet. I had already been shopping around for better mortgage rates, and I found one. I refinanced my mortgage at a lower rate with a different lender, meaning X Bank only got about 6 months of servicing fees from my loan, far short of the 3 to 5 years they typically need to turn a profit on their servicing rights investment. A month after I refinanced, I happened to run into the hostile manager while getting coffee. They bitterly commented that the convenience fee policy had been rolled back company-wide because of complaints and mentioned they knew I had refinanced my mortgage too. I simply replied that I was indeed very happy, adding that, as they say, a penny saved is a penny earned, or in this case, a quarter. I later heard that my little coin campaign had inspired several other customers to do the same at their local branches, creating a ripple effect that contributed to the policy change. Some calculated that X Bank lost nearly $4,000 on their investment in my loan servicing rights, not counting all the employee time spent counting coins. It remains one of my favorite memories of standing up to corporate greed. For the past 8 years, I've worked as a spare parts estimator for a pretty specialized manufacturing company. My job is straightforward: figure out what parts customers need, calculate manufacturing costs, add our markup, and send them quotes. Usually these quotes range from £200 to a few £100,000. During the pandemic, while working from home, I received what would become the most significant quote request of my career. The moment I saw the parts list, I knew this was massive, over £1 million worth of equipment. Our sales representative told me this could lead to an even bigger follow-up order, potentially worth £10 million over 4 years. This wasn't your typical quote that I could knock out in a day. It took me 6 whole weeks of non-stop work. I was constantly in touch with more than 20 vendors, gathering specifications, technical details, prices, and lead times for over 400 different items. Finally, after what felt like forever, I completed my masterpiece. That's when things got interesting. Our sales representative came to me with news about a complication. He explained that the customer's government required at least 4 different quotes from different suppliers as part of their anti-corruption policy. When I pointed out that we were the original manufacturer and nobody else could supply these parts, he brushed off my concern, saying he knew someone who could help us work around this. Enter this sketchy one-person company with a questionable business registration. Apparently, our sales representative and this person went way back. The plan was to make them our preferred supplier. The sales representative then explained their scheme. We would give them our normal quote, then increase the prices by 30% for 3 other companies that had been asking about it. When I objected, saying that this completely defeated the purpose of the anti-corruption policy, he dismissed my concerns. I refused to proceed without proper authorization. Then our chief operating officer called me. He told me to just do what the sales team had asked, claiming it wasn't a big deal. I stood my ground and insisted on getting that instruction in writing. After some hesitation, he agreed to send me an email. 2 years passed without any order being placed. Then I learned through another sales representative that everything had fallen apart. The one-person company had been blacklisted by the customer's government, the other 3 companies were rejected, and now the customer was looking to replace our entire product line with competitors' equipment. Management launched a massive investigation, and suddenly I found myself in the hot seat. The senior manager was furious, demanding to know why I had given different prices to those other companies when I knew this was related to anti-corruption measures. He accused me of costing them millions in potential orders. When I mentioned I was following direct instructions, he demanded proof. That's when I pulled out my ace: the email from the chief operating officer explicitly instructing me to manipulate the quotes. The room went silent. The next week, the chief operating officer was seen packing up their office. But the story doesn't end there. I later discovered that the customer's vice president of finance had previously served jail time for a suspicious oil rig purchase at an unusually low price. Our attempt to circumvent their anti-corruption measures would have never succeeded anyway. The whole situation taught me the value of keeping receipts, especially when something doesn't feel right. The company tried to make me their scapegoat for the lost multi-million-pound deal, but that one email saved my career. Meanwhile, our reputation in the industry took a massive hit, as word spread quickly in our close-knit sector. Also, the sales representative who orchestrated the whole scheme was quietly reassigned to a different division, and the one-person company essentially disappeared from the industry altogether. I still work in estimating, but now I'm known as the person who stood their ground against corporate pressure and won. I had just graduated from college with a mountain of student debt when I landed my first real job at a marketing firm. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough for me to finally move out of my parents' house. After weeks of searching, I found an apartment complex that was within my budget, though just barely. The catch? They had mandatory assigned parking for $50 per month. I drove an ancient Honda that I'd bought from my uncle for $800. It wasn't pretty, but it got me where I needed to go. Being on the third floor with a recently sprained ankle, I figured the assigned parking would be worth it to avoid limping across the street every day. 3 months into my lease, my trusty Honda finally gave up. The repair costs were more than the car was worth, and with my student loans kicking in, I couldn't afford a replacement. Fortunately, my company offered a transit pass program, and I discovered that the grocery store 2 blocks away did deliveries for a small fee. It made more sense to go car-free. I went to the leasing office to cancel my parking space. I went up to the counter and explained my situation to the property manager, telling her I wanted to remove the parking space charge since my car had died and I wouldn't be needing the space anymore. She looked at me like I'd just asked her to solve quantum physics. After a moment, a confused silence, she told me she'd never had anyone request that before and would need to check with corporate to get back to me. A month passed and the parking charge was still on my bill. I went back to the office. I told her I was there about the parking space charge that was still on my bill. She explained that according to corporate, they couldn't remove it without breaking my lease and signing a new one at current market rates plus additional fees. I pointed out that I didn't even have a car and the space had been empty for a month. She just repeated that it was part of my lease agreement, though she could offer a one-time courtesy credit. When I pressed her about the ongoing issue and asked about the cost to break the lease, she calculated it would cost about $1,500 with all the fees and market rate increases. I couldn't afford that, so I went home and actually read my lease carefully. That's when I found the golden ticket. The parking clause stated I could park any vehicle including cars, trucks, motorcycles, or trailers in my assigned space. After some research, I found a small utility trailer on an online marketplace. It wasn't cheap at $600, but I had a plan. I bought it, registered it with the DMV, and parked it in my space. Then I put up a sign offering it as storage space for $40 a month, less than half what the complex charged for their storage units. Within days, my neighbor from the second floor approached me. About the storage trailer, asking if it was still available. When I confirmed it was, he told me he was currently paying for a storage unit and would rather pay me. The next morning, I found a tow warning on my trailer. I immediately called the towing company. Me. Hi, I have documentation showing that trailers are explicitly allowed in my lease. I'm sending you a copy now. Please note that any attempt to tow my legally parked trailer will result in a complaint to the Department of Transportation. The property manager wasn't happy. She started leaving notices on my door about improper use of the parking space. Property manager. We'll waive the parking fee if you remove the trailer. Me. Thanks, but I'm actually using the space now, just as my lease allows. Word spread quickly. Within 2 months, 5 other residents had brought in similar trailers. The complex started hemorrhaging storage unit revenue. They changed the policy for new leases, but they couldn't do anything about existing ones. When I was ready to move out a year later, instead of giving notice, I found another tenant to take over my lease, ensuring the trailer clause stayed intact. I sold my trailer to them for $400. A small loss, but worth it for a year of extra income and the satisfaction of watching the property manager's face every time she saw a new trailer appear in her parking lot. 3 years later, I drove past the complex and noticed they'd been bought out by a new company. But there they were, a dozen storage trailers still parked in their assigned spaces, a testament to what happens when you try to force people to pay for something they don't need. From what I heard, the new owners tried to ban the trailers too, but gave up after realizing half their tenants would leave. After graduating with my computer science degree and working remotely for a few years, I realized I could literally work from anywhere in the world. My girlfriend, who's also in tech, felt the same way. We both loved Asian culture and wanted to experience something completely different from our American life. After months of research and planning, we chose Vietnam for its vibrant culture, amazing food, and relatively low cost of living. We arrived with such high hopes and spent our first month in a decent hotel while looking for a permanent place. That's when we met her, the apartment owner. Guess I should have seen the red flags when she kept pushing us to sign a 3-month contract right away, claiming she had many other interested parties. When we asked to see the apartment first, she quickly agreed but pressured us to make a fast decision, insisting that many people were interested in this luxury apartment. The apartment itself looked decent enough during our daytime viewing. Sure, it was overpriced compared to other places we'd seen, but it was in a good location, and we were still new to the city. The owner kept emphasizing how premium and high-class the building was. When my girlfriend asked about the internet connection, the owner enthusiastically assured us it was very fast and reliable, claiming it was the best in the area. Something in my gut told me to be cautious, so I insisted on a 2-month contract instead of 3. The owner wasn't happy about this. She questioned our decision, pointing out that 3 months was the normal duration and 2 months was unusually short. I explained that being new to the area, we wanted to make sure it was a good fit first. She finally agreed, probably thinking we'd end up staying longer anyway. The problems started literally on day 1. The internet? Completely non-existent. When we contacted her about it, she kept making excuses, telling us the previous tenant had canceled the service and we'd have to wait maybe a week for a new connection. 1 week turned into 2 weeks. Try working in tech with no internet connection. We had to camp out at coffee shops just to do our jobs. But the internet was just the beginning. The real nightmare was the noise. The apartment complex had this massive metal gate at the entrance that sounded like a prison door from a horror movie every time someone used it. And being in Vietnam, where motorbikes are the main transportation, the first-floor garage was constantly buzzing with activity. At 2 a.m. one night, after being woken up for the 5th time, my girlfriend expressed her frustration about not being able to take it anymore. I agreed with her, comparing our living situation to being inside a metal drum. When we complained to the owner, she dismissed our concerns, saying this was normal city life. After 2 months of sleep deprivation and constant frustration, we decided to move out. That's when the owner showed her true colors, demanding that we help show the apartment to new tenants since we were home all day anyway. At first, we were annoyed by her demand, but then we realized this was our chance for some sweet, sweet revenge. The first potential tenants were a young couple with a 6-month-old baby. While the owner was distracted, I quietly warned them about living there with a baby. When they asked why, I explained about the gate downstairs sounding like a gunshot every time someone uses it, day and night. They left quickly after that. The owner was furious but couldn't prove we'd said anything. My favorite was when a group of university students came to view the place. The owner was showing them around, praising how perfect it was for students. My girlfriend casually suggested they check if their laptops could run on phone hotspots, just in case the internet went out for weeks again. The owner shot us a dirty look, but the students got the message. The final showdown came when the owner tried to withhold our deposit, accusing us of scaring away her potential tenants. When I challenged her to prove it, she could only complain that everyone left after talking to us. I pointed out that maybe they were leaving because she was charging premium prices for a noisy apartment with unreliable utilities. She knew she had no legal ground to stand on, especially since we had documented all the issues with photos and videos. We got our deposit back and she had to significantly lower the rent to get new tenants. On our way out, we stuck a note in the elevator with a QR code linking to a local apartment review website where we'd shared our experience. We heard from neighbors later that several prospective tenants would scan it during viewings and promptly leave. We found a much better place in a quieter area of the city with working internet and proper sound insulation for half the price. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.